Sana Ebrahimi, welcome to the Honest Report podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So first, let's start by, if you could tell us a little bit about your upbringing in the Islamic Republic of Iran. What was it like? What were your perceptions? What were you taught? What was your worldview?
So I was born and raised in Iran, and I lived there until the age of 23. Growing up, my family was very religious, my father as well. But at the same time, my father had very, very anti-regime views, and that really helped shaping my worldview of like the Islamic Republic, and anything that basically aligns with that. So it's kind of conflicting and maybe confusing to some people that how can you be religious but anti-regime? But believe it or not, there are so many of those people in Iran today, even though I would say the majority of Iranians are not religious at all, or they are just like Shia Muslim by name. But there are these factions of religious communities that are against the regime, and I was part of one of those. And then slowly, when I was in my teenage years, I started reading and learning more about Islam. I always was very exposed to it at school because I also went to very religious conservative schools. So I wanted to also learn for myself and see like what is out there and what can I learn more. And for that, I started by reading Quran itself, from the beginning till the end, with the interpretations and the translations and everything. And that's when I started questioning things, and eventually, and when I was at the age of 18, I fully decided to leave Islam. Of course, when you live in Iran, you cannot do that like so publicly. You cannot change your documents because in Iranian documents, your religion is part of your identity, part of the informations. On like simply every application, school, college. I could not change those, obviously, for legal reasons and the fact that it is dangerous. But I left Islam. My family was very well aware of it. And then after I left Iran, I could be more vocal about my beliefs regarding Islam. Then I could also be vocal against the regime under my own identity because being in Iran and being like speaking out against the government is obviously, as everyone knows, very dangerous. And I was doing that under an anonymous account on social media like millions of other Iranians today. And then after I left Iran, I came to the US for grad school, to attend grad school. That's when I could actually start speaking out under my own identity. And yeah, here we are today.
Now, when you came to the United States, you were already critical of the Islamic Republic, but you were also quite anti-Israel. You've been vocal and you've shared pictures of you at anti-Israel rallies. When did that begin to change?
So, learning about like the nature of the Islamic Republic and everything, one thing that really outrages you is like all the human right abuses, right? So I learned to care about that, and that was my perspective of things. I was very like left leaning because that's like the group of people that I thought are concerned about those issues that I have, like human right abuses, like people dying for like demanding their basic rights and things of that sort, right? Um, and learning from not only the Islamic Republic like propaganda machine, but also like reaching out to Western media, you receive pretty much the same information about Israel. The mainstream media, I mean, look at New York Times, BBC, CNN, they reflect a lot of those propaganda. So that really enforced this for me, this information that, okay, maybe there are like some issues over there. Maybe there are this like oppressed group of people that are not really asking for much but their basic rights, and they are being heavily discriminated against, and they were being treated really badly. So that was where I was coming from. And then coming here, I I got to receive more information from all other sorts of media, experiencing things myself and seeing how they reflect what's going on inside of Iran specifically. Because right after I left Iran, that's when we had major movements, major uprisings, and major killings by the Islamic Republic. Because right before I left in 2019. Right before that, the only uprising we had before that I was like mature enough to understand what's going on was the Green Movement in 2008, which was long ago. And back then, the number of like killings and things that the atrocities that the Islamic Republic committed was lower. Access to information was more strict, so we didn't really know the scale of the atrocities, or it was not even as big as what happened in like 2019, which was right after I left, the Bloody November, which the regime killed 1,500 in 3 days, and all the other abuses that happened after that. These all happened after I left, and then now in the real time, as I know what's going on the ground in Iran, I'm seeing that being reflected in the media and seeing how they are talking about it and the information they are sharing. And it was majority wrong propaganda trying to whitewash the regime. And that really made me question about everything that I knew, also Israel. And then the COVID happened, and I was on in these clubhouse rooms that were like discussions about like Palestine-Israel issue. There was this room that was moderated by some Palestinians and some Israeli activists that were like very, very left-leaning, living in Israel. What I noticed, what I picked up from those discussions, that how the Israeli activists were trying to approach this issue by creating this environment where people can discuss and then bring both sides together and advocate for peace and coexistence. Whereas what I would see from the Palestinian side was that, no, no, no. We don't want peace with you. We just don't want you to exist. Like, there's no coexistence here. It's only us and not you. And that really made me question things, and really sparked something in me that like caused me like, oh, read more about it. And when I learned more, I learned that everything I knew was a lie. Like very fundamental things. For example, the creation of Israel, how Israel was created, and the history behind that, all the wars that was waged against Israel. Like, we don't learn any of those things. All we learn is that there were this group of Jewish people that bought some lands in that area, and then eventually, as their numbers increased, they just kicked out the rest of the people that lived there. That's what you learn, and that is really horrific, if you don't know the truth. But then I learned, and then I was like, okay, these were all lies. And just like how they lie about what is going on inside Iran, they lie about what happened in Israel, the creation of Israel, and whatever that is happening in Israel today, and whatever the atrocities Hamas is committing, and their purpose and their agenda, and what they're doing in Gaza, the atrocities they're actually committing against Palestinians. So yeah, that was the major shift for me when it came to Israel issue.
Now, how common are your views among the Iranian people?
Yeah, I would say this is very common, and maybe growing up, that was not as common. But the more people actually get exposed to real information and learn more, this is becoming even more mainstream in countries like Iran, whereas here we see an opposite shift. Um, in countries like Iran, and generally, I would say even in like countries in that region, this is now becoming the majority worldview. And I'm thinking like in Iran that is more extreme. Like you see that um, in bigger numbers in Iran than you see in other countries, perhaps, because of the direct effect that that worldview and that ideology has had on people's life. We know that Palestinian jihadist group also helped during the Islamic Revolution. And the more people are suffering from the Islamic Republic, the more they also know that this is the indirect effect of the Palestinian extremists who helped this coming to life.
Now, in the last few months, we've seen a very interesting phenomenon where Iranians themselves are openly critical of the Islamic Republic, openly supportive of Israel. Meanwhile, some of the loudest anti Israel activists and pro regime voices are, of course, not from Iran itself. What do you make of that phenomenon?
You know, this has like multiple reasons, but I would say the major reason behind that is anti-American, anti-Israel views. So basically, their view is that because we hate America and we hate everything that America is about, and we hate Israel and everything that Israel is about, then the entity that is going against these two is our friend, and it has to be something that we advocate for, because if that's against them, then it aligns with our worldview. I think this is the majority, but obviously there are people that are very well involved in like coordinated campaigns led by, I would say, Qatar, like maybe part of like Russian propaganda, Chinese propaganda. These also exist at the same time, but I would say the normal, ordinary, everyday people that you see stand with them is because of that, because they have grown up to learn America is bad. It's colonialist, it's imperialist, even though America is the country that waged war against imperialism. But for some reason, that no one knows what it is. It's an imperialist entity, and they learn that this is bad. We hate this. We hate this. And these people that are fighting against them must be good people. They cannot even fathom that these people that in your like stereotypical worldview like must be very oppressed, like the racial issues come in, like this minority race or like oppressed race of group like brown people that have been always portrayed as like the oppressed now can be oppressor. These are oppressor of their own people. They don't understand that. Yeah, unfortunately.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you saw parallels between the Islamic Republic media apparatus and its coverage of, for example, Israel and the West, and the Western media's coverage. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm gonna speak about Iran issues because that's something that I have direct information of, and I can easily detect what is state-sponsored propaganda and what is not. One of the major issues when it comes to any uprising in Iran is that the regime tries to justify violence by portraying protesters as this armed, very savage group of rioters that were trying to cause destruction, and they were trying to kill police forces that were just trying to do like control, like group control, and they were trying to organize. They were not trying to harm people, but the rioters tried to attack them, and that's why they started opening fire at them. And on the way, some people also got killed, but the majority of these people that died were armed rioters. And this is exactly, to some extent, what we see in some of the Western media. That in New York Times or like media channels like that, we see being questioned that were these people armed? These people were armed, like some of these people were armed. Or they cite Farce News, state like IRGC run news channels as their resource, saying that some of these people, protesters, were armed, and that's some of the civilians who were killed by these rioters, or saying that like Mossad was involved in these protests, and somehow blame that on Israel, twisted in a way that they can somehow blame it on Israel. And we see these parallels in Western news channels that, oh, these people were not unarmed protesters. Mossad was involved in this protest. This was not organic. Whereas us Iranians, we know people on the ground who were involved in this protest. We know civilians who were killed. Like, we know these people. We have connections to these people. We know that they were not involved in any Mossad operations, or they were not armed in any capacity, but yet they're being displayed as something that they were not. And the Western media helps with that quite a lot. Or they question the numbers that came out of Iran. People like independent institutions checked, verified these numbers with like hospitals, with mortuaries, and like all of these places, to make sure that the numbers they're reflecting is at least some like real estimation of the true number. It's at least in the same order. And the order they came with was tens of thousands. At the same time, we see Western American activists and American media questioning the numbers. We see like Anna Kasparian saying, no, that number is not true. Like the IRGC channel said 3,000, we are gonna go with that. And even when you go with that number is still pretty high. It's in the order of thousands. But yeah, we see the Western media unfortunately go shoulder to shoulder with IRGC media.
Sana Ibrahimi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure speaking with you.